The story opens in a small German town in 1990. We meet a man named Robert, who works in a factory. One day, Robert goes into his boss's office and learns that he has been fired. At the same time, we are introduced to Robert's son, Janik, who is spray painting graffiti on a wall with his friends. Police arrive at the scene, and Janik and his friends scatter. Janik manages to lose the police and returns home, where his family is gathered having lunch. When the police show up at the house, Robert jokes with the officers, asking if they'd like to join their celebration. The policeman replies that they are there to catch the boy who has been defacing walls with spray cans. State property has been vandalized. Hearing this, Janik's father David asks whether the wall doesn't belong to the people, and the officer insists it's state property. Sitting nearby, Janik's mother, Maren, interjects, asking if the officer has arrested the people who danced on top of the wall, a reference to the famous wall whose fall in 1990 united East and West Germany. Maren and her whole family hold communist beliefs and oppose the government. That's why young Janik expresses protest by painting graffiti on the wall. Later, Maren steps toward the car trunk to fetch something and notices a childhood friend named Walker. Walker had returned from Hungary. The reunion is warm. Maren remarks on his return, and David embraces him. Walker says he had felt very lonely in Hungary, so he's glad to be back. He joins David's family celebration that evening. That night, Walker stands on the house balcony watching trucks pass by. David brings a blanket for Walker to sleep on, and they both notice government trucks moving past toward a nearby warehouse complex. Walker is suspicious. He tells David it doesn't look normal. Something is being dumped at the complex. David guesses perhaps it's government files, but Walker insists it's something else and urges them to talk to David's uncle, who does maintenance at the complex and might know what's being transported. David resists at first because he and his uncle don't get along, but Walker persuades him. The next day, David and Walker stop David's uncle, Marco Vasky, while he's on the road. Walker asks for a lift and bluntly demands to know what's being transported into the complex these days. David explains that they want to see what the government is dumping and whether weapons are being moved. Marco reluctantly gets into their car. Over drinks, Marco jokes that he prefers to drink with family and comments on David's eyes, reminding him of his mother. He makes a snide remark about David's brother. David realizes Marco is not fond of him. In fact, Marco is his uncle and dislikes him. Still, David convinces Marco to come along and help them investigate. The three of them dress in black the following day and arrive at the complex gate at night. Marco opens the main gate for them. Inside the complex, they discover a large ventilation shaft sealed with a padlock. Walker asks Marco if he has the key, and Marco says he doesn't. The group is unsure how to get inside. Before leaving, David pleads with his uncle, "Take us to the place where you enter the complex." He knows Marco hates the government too, so Marco might help them. Marco answers that he could lose his job if he helps, and David presses, reminding him he used to work in the army. How long will he keep this job? Despite the tension, they prepare to proceed. They ask, "How long will you keep doing that job?" Hearing this, Marco Vasky leads them through the main entrance of the complex. The entire facility is built around an underground tunnel system, and Marco guides them into its interior. Inside the complex, there's an office where several army personnel are stationed. Marco warns them they must slip out unnoticed. He walks past the office first, and the three of them follow behind him, hiding as they move. David goes ahead first. Suddenly, a woman who had been inside the office steps out and calls for Marco. He goes in to help. She complains that the TV is broken and asks him to check it. While Marco is fixing the television, Walker and Maren quietly slip past and continue deeper into the complex. After turning the TV on, Marco rejoins them. Marco leads them to a heavy door deeper in the complex and tells them, "Behind this door is everything you came to see." When he opens it, they find a vast warehouse stacked with sacks full of documents. As they step inside, they notice banknotes scattered across the floor. Moving further in, they see bags piled up filled to the brim with currency. The sight of so much cash leaves the three of them stunned. Marco says, "Until yesterday, these were legal tender. Now they're nothing but paper. If you want, you can take some with you." Excited, the three begin playing among the bundles of notes and stuffing their bags with as much as they can carry. They even start lugging a few sacks out. Maren asks Marco why the people didn't simply burn the notes. Marco replies that the money was printed on high-quality material, making it difficult to destroy, so they're still figuring out how to dispose of it. As they prepare to leave the complex, a vehicle approaches and they quickly hide. Once the vehicle passes, they sneak out from in front of the office. But an army man inside the office spots Maren's scarf on the ground and realizes someone has been there. He flips the tunnel, lights on, and raises the alarm. Hearing the commotion, Marco and the others run. They dash toward the main gate, but it will not open. A nearby side gate begins shutting, trapping them momentarily. They scramble through the closing gate just in time. Maren asks Marco where the air shaft is. He points them toward it. They run toward the ventilation shaft as the soldier sweeps the tunnel with his rifle, searching for intruders. The four of them reach the air shaft only to find that its door, too, is locked. Forced to improvise, they run onward until they reach a different ventilation shaft and Maren climbs up. She pulls a ladder down, revealing long stairs that lead from the underground complex back up to the surface. The four climb those stairs and emerge above ground, get into their car, and drive away. Inside the car, Marin, Walker, and David breathe a collective sigh of relief. They've done something they've never done before. Marin laughs that she's never had so much fun. She asks Marco if he'll get in trouble. Marco says he thinks not. No one saw him. If someone had been seen with them, that would have been a problem. Back at David's house, they spread the bundles of cash across the table. When David's mother arrives and sees the money, she is stunned. Walker remarks that they now possess a shocking amount of cash, yet it may be worthless. David explains that they already exchanged some of the notes earlier, but if they take more to be exchanged, how will they explain suddenly having this much? Marco offers, I haven't exchanged anything yet. I can do it. Marin asks skeptically how much money he can move without attracting attention. Marco replies that he receives a monthly wage of 920 marks. Walker quickly does the math and asks how much that would amount to over 20 years. Marin argues that 20 years ago the monthly wage wouldn't have been as much as 920 marks. David suggests perhaps they earned 300 marks per month back then and calculates accordingly. David's mother finally blurts out a figure, 72,000 marks. Hearing that, David says they must find a way to exchange an amount that won't raise suspicion. They begin to plan carefully how to convert the cash into usable funds without drawing attention, knowing full well that suddenly appearing with sacks of government cash could put them all in grave danger. So Marcus Waske tells David that he doesn't need the money. He's doing all of this just to help them. Now, this entire incident takes us back to the year 1990 when the Berlin Wall had just fallen and East and West Germany were reunified. West Germany was far stronger. Its currency held greater international value, and it was used widely in trade with other countries. Because of this, West Germany's currency was kept as the official one, while East Germany's less powerful currency was demonetized. David and his family lived in East Germany, where their local money was suddenly declared invalid. The government had given citizens a limited period during which they could exchange their old East German currency for West German marks. But that window of time had already passed. As a result, David and his family were left with stacks of cash that had now become worthless paper. Later, Marcus Waske, who worked for the government, decided to deposit a small amount of this money into his bank account. When David and his family went through his passbook, they found that he had managed to deposit 500 marks, money that was now to be divided among 4 people. The group began discussing what they could possibly do with the rest of their money. How could they exchange these East German bills for West German currency when the official exchange period was already over? One evening, David stood on the balcony, staring into the distance. Marin noticed his silence and asked, "What's wrong?" David sighed and replied, "We've lost everything. The people of East Germany are the ones suffering, while all the benefits are going to the West. We've lost our jobs, and now even our money is gone." Just then the doorbell rang. Marin opened the door to find a man named Dieter standing outside, selling stoves. Dieter began describing the quality and features of his stoves enthusiastically, but David interrupted him, saying bitterly, "I only have East German money, and you people don't take that anymore." He was about to shut the door when Dieter quickly said, "We'll take East German money too." David stopped, confused. Are you joking? East German currency isn't accepted anywhere now. Even the banks have stopped taking it. Dieter smiled and asked, "Do you really have East German cash?" Marin handed David a few bills, and he passed them to Dieter. To their surprise, Dieter accepted the money and handed David 2 stoves in return. Curious, David asked, "What are you going to do with this money?" Dieter replied, "We can still deposit East German currency until Friday. We have 3 full days left. If you have more, you can buy as much as you want until then." Hearing this, David quickly took the stoves inside and shut the door. Marin turned to David with excitement. "They're still accepting our money. That means we can use it to buy goods." Without wasting any time, David and Marin went downstairs, where Dieter was still packing up. Marin asked, "Do you have more items for sale?" Dieter nodded. "Of course. If you have more cash, I can bring more products." Soon, Dieter delivered another load of goods and promised to return with even more. Marin, curious, said to David, "So these people are still exchanging East German currency?" David thought for a moment and replied, "They must be from the West. Maybe they have access to large funds or special permission to continue trading. They're probably selling goods and depositing the money before Friday's deadline." Marin's eyes widened. "That means we still have 3 days?" At that moment, Walker, their old friend, arrived and overheard everything. Marin sighed, "But there's no way we can spend all of it in just 3 days." Walker replied, "Then we'll need help, more people to buy and sell for us." Marin looked out the window toward the large residential building where she used to live. It was filled with dozens of families. A plan began to form in her mind. The next day, David, Marin, and Walker visited the building and called a meeting for all the residents. When everyone gathered, David stood before them and said, "I'm really glad you all came. I have something important to tell you. We have a huge amount of cash." He pulled the cover off the table, revealing piles of East German bills. The people gasped. "But this money is worthless now," someone exclaimed. David smiled slightly and said, "Not yet. We still have 3 days. Here's my plan. We'll distribute this money among all of you. You'll use it to buy products, bring those products back here, and then we'll sell them in West Germany. Whatever profit we make, we'll divide equally among everyone." The residents exchanged uncertain glances, but soon one man stepped forward to inspect the bills closely. After a moment, he nodded. They were all genuine. Gradually, murmurs turned into agreement. Everyone was ready to join the plan. Later, when Dieter returned to sell more stoves, he was shocked to find David's street filled with delivery trucks and people unloading goods. David had already distributed the money among the residents, who were now buying everything they could and bringing it to his home. One by one, the locals delivered boxes and equipment to David's door. His mother opened the door for each of them, accepted the goods, and passed them inside to David and Maren, who carefully stacked everything into baskets. Using ropes, they sent the baskets across to the rooftop of the building opposite them, where Walker waited. Walker loaded the items onto trolleys and placed them in the back of a car belonging to Jeanette, Maren's close friend. Jeanette drove these loaded cars into West Germany, where she sold the products and received West German currency in return. In this way, the East German money, though officially obsolete, was being used indirectly to generate valid West German marks. Their daring plan had worked. They were buying goods with the banned East German cash and selling them for real currency across the border. For the first time since the fall of the wall, the group saw a glimmer of hope, a way to turn their worthless paper into a future again. Later, Walker was sitting with Maren's daughter, Dini. After a short while, Dini got up and left. Jeanette, who was nearby, looked at Walker and said knowingly, "I know why you came back here, because you couldn't stay away. You, Maren, and David have been inseparable since childhood, like chewing gum stuck together. And honestly, Dini reminds me a lot of you. She's just like you, and she really likes you. Everyone knows about you and Maren. It's no secret." Hearing this, Walker went to meet Maren, determined to tell her that he still loved her. He stood before her and softly said, "There's something I need to tell you." But before he could continue, the doorbell rang. David's mother opened the door and informed him, "The police are here." David rushed outside, where he saw that his son, Janik, had been caught by the police for painting graffiti on the walls again. The officer handed Janik over, and to make it look like he was disciplining him, David slapped his son in front of the officer. The policeman left, but now David, Maren, and Walker were all deeply worried that the police might uncover what they were really doing. Walker decided to check the area and said, "I'll go downstairs and see what's going on." After he left, David turned to Janik and said sternly, "From now on, you're under house arrest. You're not leaving this house until I say so." Meanwhile, Walker went outside, looked around, and saw that the police had already left. He whistled, their secret signal, letting their partners know that it was safe again. One by one, everyone began carrying the goods back to David's home to continue the operation. That same day, David's young daughter Dini took a 200 mark bill to a nearby shop. The shopkeeper accepted the note but paused for a moment, examining it closely. This was because in East Germany, 200 mark notes had never actually been released into circulation. They had been printed but never issued, as the demonetization took place before they could be distributed. Those notes were meant to be destroyed, not used. But unaware of this, little Dini handed it over and happily returned home carrying a big teddy bear she had bought with it. Later that day, Walker returned home with strawberries and began distributing them among everyone. Robert noticed this and asked suspiciously, "Where did you get strawberries? And what money did you use? Strawberries can only be bought with West German marks." Another man named Lotta stood up and said angrily, "Wait, did you use our West money? We're all in this together. You can't just make spending decisions on your own, so that money belongs to all of us." He threw up his hands in frustration and added, "If this is how things are going to work, then I can't be part of it. We need to hold a meeting and decide everything properly." That evening, everyone gathered for a meeting. Lotta asked, "Who's keeping track of all the money?" "We need accountability," Walker, tired of the argument, replied. "Then maybe we should just divide the money among ourselves since we clearly can't work together anymore." With that, Walker stormed out. Robert followed him outside, trying to calm him down. "Have you lost your mind? You're provoking everyone and walking away?" But Walker shot back, "We're the ones who found this money in the first place. No one has the right to tell us what to do with it." Saying this, he turned and walked off into the dark. Robert returned inside and said, "All right, who among us is trusted by everyone?" After a brief silence, his elderly mother spoke up. "I'll take care of the money." Lotta frowned. "And why should we trust you?" Robert's mother replied calmly, "Because I'm 73 years old. I've lived my life. I have no hunger for money anymore." Her words earned everyone's respect. They agreed, and all the West German cash was moved to the laundry area, where it was officially placed under her supervision. Later, Maren confronted Walker and said, "This isn't how teamwork works. You can't just walk away whenever you feel like it." Walker looked at her and said earnestly, "Then come with me. You, me, and Dini. We'll start a new family together." Maren paused and replied softly, "And live where? Build a tiny life somewhere else? Why not stay here and make a good life with us? All of us, as one big family." Her words touched Walker deeply. He smiled faintly, and for the first time stopped thinking about leaving. Meanwhile, over in West Germany, at one of the national banks where the country's currency was printed, a senior officer received a report. A 200 mark East German note had surfaced, one of the unreleased bills that had never entered circulation. It was the very note Dini had spent at the shop. The officer showed it to his superior and said, "Sir, we've started receiving more and more of these old East German notes that were supposed to be destroyed. The total amount being exchanged is far higher than expected. By Friday, The final day for exchanging old East German currency, panic spread across the city. People rushed to spend their remaining cash on products, desperate to convert their worthless notes into goods before time ran out. As evening fell, chaos erupted in David's group. David's mother suddenly shouted, "Our money is gone!" David turned in shock. "What? How?" She replied, "I was keeping an eye on it, but someone must have taken it. I think they came through the toilet area." The money she was guarding, the West German cash, the only real currency they had been stolen. Meanwhile, David, Marin, and Walker discovered that the residents who were supposed to deliver products for sale in West Germany had begun taking those goods to their own homes instead. They were hoarding them, claiming their share early. David, furious, confronted them. "You're already dividing things among yourselves? That's not fair. This isn't how we agreed to do it." The argument quickly escalated. Voices rose, and someone threw a box that struck David. At that moment, Marcus Waske stepped forward, climbed onto a chair, and shouted, "Do you even know what's coming? The unemployment rate here in East Germany is about to rise by 25%. Within months, all our factories will shut down." His words echoed through the room, and everyone fell silent, realizing the grim truth. Their fragile hope built on piles of worthless paper was beginning to collapse. The people began worrying about their future, wondering how they would survive. Lotta spoke up bitterly. "And what else can we even do now? The exchange period is over. There's no way out." Marco Waske, however, remained calm. "Have you people actually read the government's contract in full detail?" he asked, pulling out a document. "There's a small line written at the bottom. Let me read it for you." He began, "Citizens of East Germany who are currently working abroad have until November 6th to exchange their old currency." David's eyes lit up. "So, we just need to find people who are working outside the country?" Marco nodded. "Exactly." With Marco's help, they tracked down a man who had recently been living and working abroad. David and Walker waited for him at the airport. When the man, whose name was Kulchka, finally arrived, the two quickly approached him and offered him a ride. As they drove, Kulchka, who was actually a government officer, began talking about his work. But after a while, he realized they weren't going the normal route. "Aren't we supposed to be heading toward Berlin?" he asked suspiciously. David replied casually, "We are, just taking a little detour." Sensing something off, Kulchka tried to open the car door and jump out. Walker immediately hit the brakes, and Kulchka tumbled out, scrambling to his feet before falling a few meters ahead. David raised his hands and said calmly, "Please, don't be afraid. We're not here to hurt you. We actually have a business proposal for you." Curious and still panting, Kulchka listened. David explained, "Diplomats and people who've worked abroad are still allowed to exchange money, and we need your help to do it." After a moment of silence, Kulchka thought it over and got back into the car. He agreed to help them exchange their money. Later, Marco asked him, "So how much can you exchange in total?" Kulchka replied confidently, "Around 500,000 marks." Marco smiled. "That's an excellent amount. Do you have any friends who also work abroad? People who could help us?" Kulchka nodded. "I do. One friend is Erwin. He's coming in from Uganda. Another's flying in from Sweden. And I know a few more. I can call them all," Marco asked. "And what percentage are you expecting for your help?" Kulchka smirked. "How much are you offering?" Marco replied, 2% of the total exchange. Kulchka extended his hand. "Deal." That night, everyone celebrated. Their plan was in motion. They began contacting every possible person returning from abroad. Teachers, students, laborers, anyone who could still legally exchange East German money. During the celebration, Marin stood on a chair beside David and made an announcement. "I've been thinking, why don't we buy the factory where we all used to work? We can rebuild our lives there," Latte, sitting nearby, laughed. "Do you even know how much that factory would cost?" "Millions." But David's mother, sitting in the back, said firmly, "We have enough cash for that." Encouraged, the group decided to retrieve the rest of their hidden money from the underground complex. This time, Marin's son Janik joined them. Before entering, Marco warned, "You know the risk, right? If we get caught, we're going to prison." Still, they went ahead. Deep inside the complex, they reached the same hidden area and were once again stunned by the mountains of cash lying before them. "Take as much as you can," Marin ordered. "Last time, we didn't bring nearly enough." They began stuffing their bags with money and sending them up through the ventilation shaft, where Janik was waiting to load them into their van. After transferring several full bags, Marin, David, and Marco started carrying more cash when they noticed a car passing nearby. From its behavior, they quickly realized the complex was under surveillance. They took an alternate route, moving quickly through the tunnels. But then, one of the female security officers spotted them. She looked straight at Marco and said quietly, "I didn't see you, and I didn't hear you either." Before anyone could respond, Walker suddenly appeared from behind and struck the woman, knocking her to the ground. Shocked and frightened, the four, Marin, David, Marco, and Walker, ran through the tunnels trying to escape. But soon, an army officer discovered the unconscious woman, sounded the alarm, and chaos erupted in the complex. Soldiers poured in, patrolling the tunnels in jeeps, their flashlights cutting through the darkness. The group reached the ventilation shaft, but hearing soldiers nearby, they ducked behind large metal drums to hide. Up above, Janek was waiting, but hearing the commotion, he panicked and started to climb down. David gestured urgently from below, whispering, "Go back up!" Janek understood and climbed back up quickly. The soldiers, however, had heard movement from the ventilation area. "Someone's up there," one of them shouted. "Let's check the shaft." As the soldiers moved closer, David, Walker, and Marin stepped out of hiding, ready to distract them. At the same time, Janek, still above, noticed that some products were left in the van. Thinking fast, he started lowering the goods down by rope, pretending it was just a supply transfer. Seeing this, the soldiers assumed they were legitimate workers handling official cargo. They helped pull down the crates, and eventually, they let Marco, Marin, David, and Walker go. Taking full advantage of the confusion, the 5 of them, now reunited, loaded every last bag of money into the van and sped off into the night. Their next stop, finalizing the deal to buy the factory that once symbolized their struggles, and now their redemption. When Marco Waski finally returned from the deal, everyone gathered around him eagerly. "What happened? Did it work?" they asked. Marco nodded with a satisfied smile, and the entire group cheered. Their plan had succeeded. Soon after, everyone went together to visit the factory they had purchased. As they explored the place, David looked around the old machinery and said, "Production here in East Germany costs much more than in the West. We have to pay double the wages and bear double the expenses." Lotta then switched on one of the machines, and to everyone's surprise, it started running smoothly. From the conveyor came out a small component labeled Nupcell, which was what this factory used to produce. Checking the order book, they found that these parts were once supplied not just to West Germany, but also to Sweden. Curious, they traveled to West Germany to learn more about this product, only to discover that Nupcell parts were already being sold there, labeled Made in Sweden. David and Walker exchanged glances as a realization sank in. Walker said bitterly, "When we were the cheaper workforce, the West bought these parts from us. But now they import them from Sweden because it's cheaper there." Seeing how tough it would be to compete with Swedish factories, the group grew disheartened. They had bought the factory, but restarting production now seemed nearly impossible. Meanwhile, back home, David's mother was still guarding the money. She eventually dozed off, while young Deanie sat nearby, innocently playing with the piles of cash. At that moment, Janek, Marin's son, quietly came in, pulled out some money from a drawer, and slipped away. Marin, Walker, and David were already stressed about their failed business venture. Elsewhere, Janek was secretly seen handing over money to someone, apparently making a shady deal of his own. Later, Walker told Marin, "We should leave this place for Deanie's sake." But Marin, angry and emotional, snapped, "If you truly care about Deanie, you'll stay." David, who overheard this from outside, came in and asked coldly, "What does Deanie have to do with this?" The look on Marin's face said it all. In that instant, David realized the painful truth. Deanie wasn't his daughter. She was Walker and Marin's child, a secret they had hidden from him for years. Devastated, David fell silent, the betrayal cutting deep. Soon after, Walker, Marin, and Deanie prepared to leave for good. Later that evening, when Marin returned home, David quietly asked, "Is he gone?" Marin nodded softly. "Yes, this time he's really gone." Just then, the doorbell rang. David opened it, only to find Janek standing there, flanked by several police officers. Because of Janek's actions, the entire group's secret operation had been exposed. The police rounded up everyone from the building and took them into custody. At the interrogation, an officer demanded, "Who was responsible for all this?" Lotta spoke up bravely, "We all were. We did it together." The officer frowned. "Do you people even realize what you've done?" Marin replied firmly, "We just took what was rightfully ours." Marco added, "They handed all of East Germany's control to the West. They froze our money supply and raised the cost of living. What choice did we have?" Hearing this, the officer stepped out to call his superior. A senior government official soon entered the room and said, "I don't want this scandal to spread any further. Tell me your conditions. What do you want?" David stood up and said, "We just want to run our own factory, to produce goods here and export them to West Germany." The official frowned. "Be realistic. What's actually possible?" Marco calmly presented their condition. They would hand over all remaining money, and in return, the government would grant them ownership of a small island, on one condition, that none of them would ever speak publicly about the scandal again. The deal was made. Sometime later, the group was seen enjoying a peaceful life together on that island. Walker, Marin, and David, despite their complicated past, were trying to live harmoniously with Deanie as one family. One day, as David was playing with Deanie's big teddy bear, he accidentally pressed on it and felt something strange inside. Curious, he tore it open, and to his astonishment, bundles of currency began falling out. It turned out that the missing West German money everyone thought had been stolen hadn't been stolen at all. Deanie had hidden it inside her teddy bear. That massive teddy was stuffed full of cash. So even after the government had confiscated everything, David's family still had enough money left to rebuild their lives. In the end, they decided to start a new factory, one that produced the very same teddy bears that had once saved them. David, Marin, and Walker worked together again, this time honestly, and ran the business successfully. And with that powerful and heartwarming ending, the story reaches its conclusion. A journey that began with loss and betrayal, but ended with hope, unity, and a brand new beginning. What a ride it's been, filled with love, greed, rebellion, and redemption. Tell me, friends, which moment hit you the hardest? The emotional truth about Deanie, the shocking betrayal, or that brilliant twist with a teddy bear full of money? If this story moved you even a little, smash that like button and let's hit a target of 1,000 likes for this incredible tale of courage and comeback. Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to know what you felt watching this roller coaster of emotions. We'll meet again soon with another gripping and unforgettable story. Until then, stay inspired, stay curious, and keep believing in second chances.